slide. There you go. There you go. So anyway, welcome. Hey, I guess it's my fault. I didn't wear an ugly sweater. Actually, I had one, but it shrunk. But Tim made up for all of us that did not wear one. So the video that you were going to see is a video about the Grinch and his reflection on kind of what Christmas is all about. And he makes this statement. He says, maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store. Maybe, just maybe, Christmas means a little bit more. And that's what we've been trying to kind of talk about this December, this Christmas season. We've been trying to look beyond the simple gifts and the trees and the decorations, and those things are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. You ought to see my tree. I mean, I outdid myself. I love it. I love it. And I love all of those aspects of Christmas. But there's more to it. If I'll allow there to be more, if I'll choose to receive that blessing. So we've been talking about the more that Christmas has to offer. And specifically, we've been talking about joy, and about peace, and about hope, and about salvation. You're way behind me up there. There you go. And this week, we're going to talk about hope. This week, we're going to talk about hope. You know, you read the story of Christmas in Scripture. You read the story, and it amazes me as I went back and I read it once again for the umpteenth time, but enjoyed it once again. But the thing that caught my attention this time was all the fear that surrounded all the different aspects of Christmas. Every person, it seems like, that you come in contact with in the Christmas story, every single one of those people had this sense of fear within them, and God has to step in and say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. For example, let me just review a few of them with you. There was Zechariah. You remember Zechariah in Luke chapter 1? Zechariah was shaken and overwhelmed with fear. And when he saw him, that is the angel said, say it out loud, don't be afraid. You can do better than that. Say it again. Don't be afraid. Zechariah, God has heard your prayer. Your wife Elizabeth will give you a son, and you are to name him John. So that's the very beginning of the story. But then there is Mary herself. And of course, her world has been turned upside down as this young girl has found herself to be with child, though she's never been with a man. And if that's not enough, she finds out that her child is going to be the Messiah. He's going to be the Messiah. And so God has to settle her down. And the next one. So confused and disturbed, Mary tried to think what the angel could mean. Don't be afraid. Caught up to you there. Don't be afraid, Mary. The angel told her, for you have found favor with God. And so again, there's the fear that is in this young girl's heart. We've been spending a lot of time with the shepherds in previous messages. And the shepherds, these guys that are out there in the fields, and they've got their sheep finally bedded down for the night. And then this angel appears. And the Bible says, suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared among them, and the radiance of the Lord's glory surrounded them. Say it. They were afraid. But the angel reassured them. Don't be afraid. He said, I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all the people. And then Joseph. I mean, he's got his life planned out. He's found the woman that he loves. He's going to spend the rest of his life with her. And then this incredible event takes place. And his heart is broken. And he's trying to figure out how to separate himself from these events and how to put her away so that, you know, that this will not have to continue in his family and whatnot. And then the angel appears to him, and as he considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream. Joseph, son of David, the angel said, take Mary as your wife, for the child within her was conceived by the Holy Spirit. Over and over again. People are living in fear, and there's so much confusion. And do you see what happens? God steps into the fear of the people. He doesn't rebuke them. He doesn't chastise them. He doesn't belittle them. What he does is he steps into their fear, and he provides them with hope. He tries to use the situation, and he provides them an opportunity to live not in fear, but to live in hope. He wants to reassure them in the midst of all this fear. Don't be afraid. One of my favorite passages in the Bible that speaks of this Christmas story is found in John chapter 1 and verse 5. It simply says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it." The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot extinguish the light. And that, to me, is the story of Christmas. It's the story of the hope that has been brought into the world in the midst of, darkness. And maybe this Christmas season, you're like, Brian, I've been coming, I've been listening to you, but if you only knew what was going on in my life right now, if you only knew my story, and I get it. I know that this time of the year and this season brings so many different emotions, produces those within us. But no matter how dark your circumstances may seem, what I want you to hear God say this morning is, don't be afraid. And I want you to feel him. I want you to know that he is always there, that God's hope always shines brighter than the darkness. I'd like to share with you this morning just some thoughts centered around that. Some truths that I think that will just be so important and hopefully can calm your spirit in the midst of maybe any fear that you're feeling, but can add a sense of brightness and of hope for your Christmas season. Here's the first thing I'd like for you to know. Listen, I believe this with all my heart. God has a plan. God has a plan for you. He's got a plan for every single one of us. You go back to the story of, at the very beginning, Adam and Eve, the first man and the first woman. And when they were at their worst, and they messed everything up. I mean, it was so good, it was so wonderful, so clean, so wholesome. God was taking care of their every want, every need. He was there for them, and they messed it up. They messed everything up. But what did God do? He didn't come in and just give them the back of his hand. He didn't give up on them. What God did was he began to implement a plan to restore the relationship so that he could be restored with them. He wanted, even more than they wanted, he wanted to be with Adam and Eve again. He wanted that beautiful relationship that he created for it to be. God wanted that. And so upon everything falling apart, he steps into the midst of human history. He doesn't shun them. He doesn't abandon them. He immediately put into place a plan to restore his relationship with them. And so there are all kinds of passages. I chose just a few. Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15. "And I will cause hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring, and he will strike your head and you will strike his heel." And I know people read that, it's like, what is that talking about? How are we supposed to understand that? And at least I think it's obvious this: there's going to be conflict in this world. There's going to be conflict between evil, between the devil, and between mankind. It seems like that this verse is at least saying that. But what God is saying is, but I've got a plan to deal with that conflict. I am going to step in the midst of the fears and the chaos and the trouble of this world, and I have a plan that will help you, that will restore you, that will redeem you. You can see that plan being revealed for passages like Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 14. "The Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the virgin will conceive a child. She will give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel," which means God with us. And we've looked at this verse to say that hundreds of years before Jesus, God was beginning to reveal the plan. God was saying, I've got a plan in place, and I'll even give you a sign. And here is the sign that you will be able to witness and see and know that I'm mindful of you, that I'm not giving up on you, that I'm not shunning you, that your troubles are my troubles, and I want to be a part of the solution. And then, of course, we come to the Christmas story, Matthew chapter 1. It's made so clear she will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. You see, God's always had a plan. He's always had a plan. A plan for the world, and he's got a plan for your life. He's got a plan for your life. And you may feel that you've messed everything up, but I want you to know this morning that as long as you have the breath of life in your body, it is showing that God has not given up. That God has this idea, this concept, this longing, this plan for your life. What he's waiting for, I think, is just for us to slow down. Maybe slow down from our hurriedness, but maybe even slow down from our stress and our fears. And see him offering to welcome us, to see that he actually does have a plan for our lives, which then leads me to the next thing that I'd like to share with you, and that is, I believe that God is in the details. He's in the details of your life. Even if you don't see them, I believe that God is in the details of life. You go and you look at the Mary and Joseph and how all that began. I mean, it's just utter chaos in so many ways, isn't it? Mary and Joseph, for example, they're like 80 miles. They're living up in Nazareth, and they're like 80 miles from Bethlehem. And yet the scripture says that this Messiah, this child, is going to be born in Bethlehem. Well, how in the world does a young couple and a young lady that's 9 months pregnant, how in the world does she get to Bethlehem to fulfill the prophecy, to fulfill what God has planned for the world and for their life? Well, there's this king, and he pops in his head to cause a census among his people so that he can figure out how many people there are, so that he can figure out how much taxes he can collect from them. And he thinks he's in charge of this situation. He thinks that he is controlling and pulling the strings. But you watch what's happening. He calls everybody, go back to your hometown, where your ancestors are from, where your family is from, and there you have to sign up for the census so that we'll know who you are and where you're living. And he thinks he's in charge. But as you go back and you read the story again, you find out, oh no, God's pulling the strings there. God is in charge. He's using all of these different details. He's using all these different situations that are taking place in their life to accomplish his purpose and his goal. What I'm trying to say to you is that you've got things going on in your life and you're feeling like they're spinning out of control. You feel like that you've lost direction in your life, something like that. And maybe, just maybe, and I believe so, God can use those details and he can use your experiences for his greater plan for your life. You look at your own life and you feel like that it's just not working out. You look closer and you might just see God using this moment in your life to work something out greater for your betterment and for his glory. You may feel that it is by happenstance that you're here this morning at Vaughn Hill. Well, maybe. But maybe, just maybe, God is using this moment in time, maybe even this message, these songs, to speak into your heart. Because he has something else for you. He has something he would like to do in your life. But he needs you to slow down, not stop. Don't be afraid and say, I think God has a plan for my life. And I think God can even use these messed up details in my life for his glory and for my benefit. I want to give you a verse that is one that many of us have held on to for so many years. It's this incredible verse. Jesus looked at them and he said, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Amen. Now that's not just great literature. It's just not a pretty little phrase written in the Bible. You can claim that verse. You can write it down and put it in your car on the steering wheel. You can put it on the refrigerator. You can put it on your mirror there as you're getting ready in the morning. And you stop and you think and you reflect. And it says that with man, things are all messed up. They're goofed up. Sometimes they're filled with so much stress and pain and fear. But with God, all things are possible. And I've decided I'm going to take that. I'm going to accept that. I'm going to welcome that into my story, into my life. I've been trying to control this. It's stressing me out. It's wearing me. It's beating me. It's taking me down. But with God, all things are possible. I believe somebody needs to hear that this morning. And I believe you need to give God a chance. You need to give God a chance. You can't get past this thing or over this problem, and it's been there, and yet God can take even the messed up things of our life, and if we will slow down, He can do some incredible things. I want to share with you my favorite two words in all the English language and in all the Bible, but God. You're looking at a person whose life story can be summed up in two words, but God. I want that on my tombstone. I want that. I want people to know that. But God. What that says is God, He has the final answer. God is the one that can make a difference. It's all through the Bible. The Israelites are up against the Red Sea. The Egyptian army is quickly approaching. And they're certainly many of them are going to die. And lots of them are going to be taken right back into Egypt, into slavery once again, right? But God. But God. Go back and read that story. Daniel stands up for what is right, and for his trouble he's thrown into the lion's den, where he's surely going to be crushed and killed, right? That's what happens when you're in the lion's den. But God. But God. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, thrown into the fiery furnace because they stood up for what they believed in, and now they are going to suffer this horrific death. But God. And some of you have your own but God moment. Your life seemed hopeless and you were against the old proverbial rock in a hard place. But God. Your marriage, your health, your finances, your addiction. But God. He has the final say if you will realize and welcome Him into your story. And you will realize He is a part of the details. Which brings me to my final thought this morning. The impossible becomes possible when you surrender to God's will. It does. It absolutely does. Mary's world is turned upside down, right? I mean, ladies, put yourself at 14 or 15 years old, and here you are with child, and there's just no biological reason this should be taking place. She's young, she's a teenager, she's never been in a physical relationship with a man, and she has to explain this to Joseph, the guy she's engaged to her family, to his family, to all the neighbors. I mean, what a mess. And so she sees this angel, and the angel then explains everything to her. And then there is this incredible response in Luke 1:38. Mary responded, I'm the Lord's servant. I'm the Lord's servant. May everything you have said about me come true. And then the angel left her. You see, God can't begin to do the impossible in your life until you surrender to Him. God can't do those things that you want to happen in your life until you make yourself available to Him. Mary's life is messed up as you can imagine, but she hears that God has a plan And God is in the details, and so her conclusion is, God can do the impossible. He can make the difference. And so she says, I'll just be your servant, God. I don't even know which step to take next, but I am available for you to use, God. And then there's Joseph, of course. Wow. He finds out that the girl he loves, the girl he has planned to spend the rest of his life with, is now with child. He knows it's not his child. So he's making his plans to put her away and then to try to figure out how to go on with the rest of his life. And then that angel appears and says, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be afraid. God's got a plan. And he's a part of all these different details. And so what is Joseph, what did he do? Matthew 1:24, when Joseph woke up, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded and took Mary as his wife. Mary and Joseph had to both had to decide, am I going to do this my way, or am I going to give in to God's way? That's the bottom line. And maybe that's where you are this morning. You're in that very place this morning, and you have got to decide whether you're going to keep doing things your way and try to figure it out, living in fear and terrified, or whether you are going to surrender to the plan that God can take even this mess and he can turn it into something incredible. Now let me say this. It'll be difficult. I'm not saying it. Can you imagine how many people talked about Mary and Joseph? I mean, can you imagine what their families went through? Listen, it's going to be difficult. It's not a simple thing to say, I surrender all to you, God. I surrender all. It could be difficult. But all of a sudden, in the course of time, you see that God had a plan all along, that he was in every single detail, and God accomplished something that I could have never dreamed of or accomplished myself. You want me to give you some proof of that? I never in my wildest dreams I never dreamed that I would be preaching December 2025 at the Vaughn Church of Christ. I never thought that a decade ago. It was not in my thoughts or plans or life goals or anything. But, God had a plan. And I didn't see it. But what I tried to do, and for you guys that were here, it's going to be 11 years ago come March. For those of you that were here, you didn't see it either, I'm sure. I'm sure. And yet here is God with a church and with a guy that is just simply saying, God, you direct this thing, and we believe you're going to be a part of every detail, and we'll work this thing out. And that's what happened. Because God was in the detail doing that which I don't think any of us thought was actually possible. And maybe your story is like that. Maybe you have the exact same kind of story. I believe that God, I believe with all my heart, with God, all things are possible. And so I believe even this morning, the reason that you are here and the reason that God sent his son Jesus into this world is so that you could have hope. And I would imagine that's the greatest gift that some of you could receive this Christmas. Because you're in a situation in which you don't feel any hope. You don't feel like that this weight, this burden is ever going to come off of you. But I'm living proof, and there's living proof all around you. It wasn't easy, but you work through the details of it. You give it to God. You surrender to him. Say, I'm letting go of this. And now you look back over the years and you say, I can see what God was doing. I can see the plan that he had. He took a mess and he turned it into something absolutely incredible. Only God can do that. Right. But God can do that. And He would like to even do that for you this Christmas, I believe. If you'll humble yourself in the midst of the turmoil, humble your heart and receive His plan for your life. Right now, it doesn't look so good. But God. One day you'll look back and you'll say, but God. And you'll have a story to tell if you begin trusting in Him and receiving His gift of hope this morning. Would you stand? And let's conclude our service with this incredible song. Go